The celestial Concordat had ruled the known universe for eons with an iron fist of impeccable manners. Their empire spanned galaxies, held together not by military might or technological prowess, but by the most elaborate and unyielding system of etiquette ever devised. High Arbiter Xylof V adjusted his 13 layers of ceremonial robes, each crease and fold signifying his exact rank and societal standing to the millimeter. He gazed out the sweeping windows of the Citadel of Decorum, his compound eyes taking in the glittering expanse of capital world Orith 7. "Grand Vizier," he bellowed, his voice modulated to the exact pitch and timbre required for addressing a subordinate of the vizier's rank. Grand Vizier Loomis appeared precisely 7.2 seconds later, as was proper. "You have summoned, most exalted one," he intoned, bowing at the three exact angles that denoted respect, subservience, and a hint of familial connection. They were 43rd cousins, twice removed. Xylof V's mandibles clicked in agitation. The humans, they approach. Loomis's antennae drooped a fraction of a degree, the Concordat equivalent of a horrified gasp. Surely not. Most elevated. Their application for diplomatic relations was rejected on 3,927 separate points of improper form. Nevertheless, Xylof V sighed. They come. Our long-range sensors detect a single ship, broadcasting on all frequencies with no regard for galactic comm etiquette. A holoscreen flickered to life, displaying a message that made both aliens recoil. "Hey there, space friends. We're the humans from Earth, and we're super excited to meet you. Let's grab a coffee and chat." "By the sacred scrolls of civility," Loomis exclaimed, his exoskeleton paling. They used an exclamation point in a first contact message. Xylof V's legs trembled beneath his robes. "Prepare the halls of greeting. We must receive them with all due pomp and circumstance. Protocol must be maintained." As the Citadel erupted into frenzied yet meticulously prescribed preparation, neither Xylof V nor Loomis could shake the feeling that their carefully ordered universe was about to change forever. Aboard the Earth's ship Icebreaker, Captain Zoe Court grinned at her crew. Let's go make some new friends." Her first officer, Lieutenant Prio Osei, raised an eyebrow. "You sure about this, Cap? These Concordat folks seem intense." Zoe's grin widened. "Priya, my friend, that's exactly why they need us. A little small talk never hurt anyone." As the Icebreaker prepared to dock, none of its crew could have imagined the galactic upheaval their friendly chatter was about to unleash. The halls of greeting buzzed with attention so thick you could cut it with a ceremonial knife, which incidentally was a 47-step ritual no one had performed in over 3 centuries. Captain Zoe Quark and her crew stood before the assembled Concordat dignitaries, their casual stance a stark contrast to the rigidly poised aliens. High Arbiter Xylof V began the oration of welcoming, a traditionally 6-hour affair. "Esteemed visitors from the planet designate Earth, we bid you dash." "Whoa!" Zoe interrupted, her eyes wide. "Is that a living chandelier?" The room fell into shocked silence. Grand Vizier Loomis fainted dead away, his antennae curling into tight spirals of distress. Xylof V's mandibles clicked rapidly. That is, we do not discuss decor during formal dash." "It's gorgeous," Lieutenant Priya Osei chimed in. "Hey, does it change colors? Ours back home do this cool thing where they sync up with music." The Concordat delegation's collective exoskeletons began to pale at an alarming rate. Whispers broke out among the lower-ranked officials. "Silence," Xylof V thundered, his voice cracking with the effort to maintain decorum. "We shall proceed with dash." "So," Zoe clapped her hands together, grinning. "This weather, huh? Pretty wild. Is it always this purple outside?" A junior attaché named Blixblax found himself answering before he could stop himself. "Oh no, it's usually more of a mauve. There's a fascinating atmospheric phenomenon that dash." He clapped all 4 hands over his mouth, horrified at his own breach of protocol. But the damage was done. Like a virus, small talk began to spread through the gathering. "I've always wondered about the mauve skyline. Did you see the game last solar cycle? These robes are killing me in this heat." Xyloff V watched in growing horror as centuries of carefully cultivated etiquette crumbled before his eyes. He turned to Captain Quark, mandibles quivering. What have you done?" Zoe shrugged, still smiling. "Just being friendly. Say, got any good restaurants around here? I'm starving." As the humans continued to mingle, asking about families, hobbies, and favorite colors, the rigid structure of Concordat society began to crack. News of the strange, chatty aliens spread like wildfire across the Empire. On the mining world of Krex 9, a lowly or processor dared to ask his supervisor about his weekend plans. In the hydrogen gardens of Florix Prime, two highborn Concordat youths giggled over shared gossip. And in the sacred halls of the Galactic Senate, a bold representative stood up and said, "You know what? I've always thought these sessions were a bit boring." Back on Capital World Orith 7, Xyloff V retreated to his private chambers, his mind reeling. "Computer," he croaked, "give me the projected societal impact of this small talk." The computer whirred for a moment before responding. "Error. Traditional societal models no longer applicable." Recalculating. As Xyloff V stared at the flashing error message, he couldn't shake the feeling that the very foundations of the Celestial Concordat were beginning to crumble. And all because of a few friendly words. In the newly christened Chill Zone, formerly the Hall of Supreme Dignity, Zoe raised a glass of something bubbly and vaguely alien. "To new friends," she toasted as around her, Concordat officials tentatively began to relax, loosen their robes, and for the first time in millennia, simply chat. The Celestial Concordat was in chaos. 3 standard months had passed since the humans' arrival, and the Empire was experiencing something it hadn't faced in eons: spontaneity. The carefully choreographed dance of Imperial life had devolved into a free-form mosh pit of casual conversation and unscheduled interactions. In the Grand Hall of Deliberation, Supreme Chancellor Xyloff called the Imperial Senate to order. Or at least he tried to. "Esteemed colleagues," he boomed, his voice echoing off the cavernous walls. "We shall now commence the 47,293rd session of the Dash." "Hey Xyloff," Senator Clipclob interrupted, waving a tentacle. "How's the wife and larvae?" The chamber fell into stunned silence. Xyloff's eye stalks wobbled in confusion. That is, we do not discuss personal matters during Dash." "Oh, come on," another senator chimed in. "We've been sitting here for hours. A little chit-chat won't hurt." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Xyloff felt his grasp on protocol slipping away. But the sacred traditions Dash. "Boring," someone shouted from the back. And just like that, the most powerful governing body in the known universe dissolved into a cacophony of idle chatter. Senators swapped recipes for glup cakes, compared exoskeleton polishing techniques, and debated the latest zero-G holodramas. Xyloff slumped in his ceremonial throne, utterly lost. For the first time in his 300-year career, he had no idea what to do next. Meanwhile, on the factory world of Mechmach 6, the assembly lines ground to a halt. Workers who had spent millennia in silent, synchronized production suddenly found themselves talking. "So, Drone 7X, 925 said to his neighbor, 'Come here often?' Drone 8Y, 1042 stared blankly. We have worked side by side for 3,000 years. Yeah, but have we ever really talked?" 7X, 925 pressed on. "Like, what do you do for fun?" 8Y, 1042 circuits nearly fried with the effort of processing this novel concept. "Fun? I do not compute." Across the Empire, similar scenes played out. Concordat citizens, long accustomed to rigid schedules and predetermined interactions, found themselves adrift in a sea of social uncertainty. In the Citadel of Decorum, High Arbiter Xyloff V paced frantically, his many legs wearing a groove in the ornate floor. "This is a disaster," he wailed to Grand Vizier Loomis. "The Empire is falling apart." Loomis, who had taken to wearing only 12 layers of robes, scandalous, shrugged. "Is it though? I mean, people seem happier." Xyloff V's mandibles clacked in horror. "Happiness is not the point. Order is the point. Structure. Predictability." At that moment, Captain Zoe Quark sauntered into the chamber, a steaming mug in her hand. "Hey, fellas, what's the buzz?" Both aliens turned to her, momentarily united in their exasperation. "You," Xylof V pointed accusingly. "This is all your fault." Zoe took a sip from her mug, unfazed. "Whoa, easy there, big guy. What's got your antennae in a twist?" "Everything is falling apart." Xylof V gesticulated wildly. "The Senate is in shambles. Industries are at a standstill. And just yesterday, I saw two Grand Duchesses hugging in public." Zoe grinned. "Sounds like progress to me." But as she looked closer, she saw genuine distress in the aliens' compound eyes. The humans had unleashed something the Concordat was utterly unprepared for: freedom from social constraints. And in the vacuum left by centuries of rigid etiquette, an uncomfortable truth was emerging. No one knew what to say. Across the Empire, the initial burst of chatter was fading, replaced by an awkward, stretching silence. Millennia of suppressed social skills left the Concordat's citizens paralyzed, caught between the fear of saying the wrong thing and the new, burning desire to connect. In offices, homes, and public spaces, conversations petered out into uncomfortable pauses. Eye stalks darted nervously. Tentacles fidgeted. The entire empire seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for someone, anyone, to break the silence. As Zoe looked out over the capital city, she realized that in teaching the Concordat to talk, they'd overlooked something crucial: how to listen. The real challenge was just beginning. "Well, guys," she said, turning back to Xylof V and Loomis with a determined glint in her eye. "Looks like it's time for Small Talk 201, the art of conversation." Little did she know, the awkward silence spreading across the stars was about to spark a revolution that would reshape the very fabric of Concordat society. As the great, awkward silence settled over the celestial Concordat like a thick, uncomfortable fog, something unexpected began to stir in the Empire's lower echelons. On the algae farms of Squish Squash 9, a lowly nutrient technician named Blorp Blip found himself in the midst of yet another painfully silent work shift. The initial excitement of casual conversation had faded, leaving behind a palpable tension. Blorp Blip's tentacles fidgeted nervously as he struggled to think of something, anything, to say to his fellow workers. Suddenly, inspiration struck. "Hey," he ventured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Did you guys see that crazy nebulous storm last night?" His co-workers froze, goo bulbs pulsating with surprise. For a moment, Blorp Blip feared he'd made a terrible mistake. But then, "Yeah," exclaimed Glop Glop, a neighboring technician. "It was amazing. All those colors. Like a dam bursting." Conversation flooded the algae vats. Workers who had toiled in silence for centuries found themselves excitedly discussing the weather, swapping stories about their larval stages, and even complaining about their working conditions. Word of the Squish Squash Small Talk Rebellion spread faster than a quantum virus. Across the Empire, the lower classes began to embrace casual conversation not just as a novelty, but as a form of rebellion against the suffocating silence imposed by their societal betters. In the neon-lit underbelly of Capital World Orith, 7 secret chatter clubs sprang up overnight. Here, Concordat citizens from all walks of life gathered to practice the forbidden art of shooting the breeze. "Okay, everyone," announced Zishazaks, a former etiquette drone turned underground small talk guru. "Today's topic is hobbies. What do you like to do for fun?" The assembled aliens shifted nervously and used to such personal inquiries. Then a timid voice piped up from the back. I like to collect cosmic dust particles," admitted Yorn Yip, a maintenance worker. "I have 7,492 unique specimens." The room erupted in excited chatter. "That's so cool. How do you store them? Can we see your collection?" As Yorn Yip basked in the unexpected attention, a spark of something long dormant ignited in his triple hearts. It was a feeling alien to most Concordat citizens: pride in individual accomplishment. Meanwhile, in the upper echelons of society, panic was setting in. Reports of unauthorized fraternization flooded the citadel of decorum. High Arbiter Xylof V's exoskeleton had turned a sickly shade of puce from stress. "We must crush this rebellion," he shrieked, pacing frantically. "Deploy the etiquette enforcers. Mandatory silence for all citizens below rank 7. But his proclamations fell on increasingly deaf ears. The rigidly hierarchical structure that had defined Concordat society for eons was crumbling in the face of something far more powerful: genuine human connection. Captain Zoe Quark watched the unfolding chaos with a mixture of amusement and concern. "You know," she mused to her first officer, Priya, "I'm starting to think we might have overdone it a bit." Priya snorted. "You think? We came here to make first contact, not topple an empire. Hey, how was I supposed to know asking about the weather would lead to full-scale revolution?" Zoe protested. But as she surveyed the changed landscape of Orith 7, a hint of pride crept into her voice. "Still, look at them. They're finally talking to each other. Really talking." Across the empire, the revolution gained momentum. Rigid social barriers that had stood for millennia crumbled in the face of shared jokes and swapped stories. In the Galactic Senate, a bold motion was put forward to replace the traditional 17-hour oratory of grievances with a more casual gripe session. It passed unanimously. Even the upper classes weren't immune. At a state dinner, the Grand Duchess of Pomf 6 scandalously asked the Duke of Regal Ref about his children, and found herself genuinely interested in the answer. As night fell on capital world Orith 7, the streets buzzed with an energy not seen in living memory. Concordat citizens of all ranks mingled freely, sharing drinks, laughter, and most revolutionary of all, their genuine thoughts and feelings. In the Citadel of Decorum, now eerily empty save for a few die-hard traditionalists, High Arbiter Xylophvi slumped in defeat. "It's over," he muttered to Grand Vizier Loomis. Centuries of perfect order, undone by chit-chat. Loomis, who had recently taken up the human hobby of knitting and was sporting a lumpy scarf, shrugged. "Maybe it's not such a bad thing, sir. Have you tried just talking to people? It's actually quite nice." Xylophvi's mandibles quivered with indignation. But as he opened his mouth to deliver a scathing rebuke, he paused. For the first time in his long life, he found himself wondering, what did he actually want to say? As the revolution of small talk swept across the stars, reshaping the very foundations of Concordat society, one thing became abundantly clear: the Empire would never be the same again. And perhaps, just perhaps, that wasn't such a bad thing after all. The dawn of a new era broke over the celestial Concordat, its light refracting through the shattered remnants of millennia-old traditions. The empire that had once prided itself on rigid structure and impeccable manners now pulsed with the chaotic energy of unfettered conversation. In the Grand Plaza of Orith 7, where once only the highest-ranking officials dared to tread, a motley crew of aliens from all walks of life gathered for what had become known as the Daily Dish. "Order! Order!" shouted Zishazax, the former etiquette drone, now standing atop a makeshift podium. Today's hot topic: should we keep the name Celestial Concordat or go with something a bit more chatty? The crowd erupted in a cacophony of suggestions, each more outlandish than the last. The Gabby Galaxy, Star Chatter Central, the Cosmic Coffee Clatch. From her perch on a nearby balcony, Captain Zoe Quark watched the proceedings with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "Well, Priya," she said to her first officer, "I think it's safe to say the mission didn't go quite as planned." Priya snorted. "Understatement of the millennium, Cap. We came to make first contact, not dismantle an entire civilization." "Hey, how was I supposed to know they'd never heard of water cooler talk?" Zoe protested, but her voice lacked conviction. The weight of unintended consequences hung heavy on her shoulders. Meanwhile, in the once sacred halls of the Citadel of Decorum, now renamed the Hangout Spot, High Arbiter Xylophvi sat alone, staring at his reflection in a pool of ceremonial oil. His once pristine robes were rumpled, his antennae drooping with defeat. "Looking pretty rough there, big guy," came a familiar voice. Zoe plopped down beside him, offering a steaming mug of something that smelled suspiciously like coffee. Xylophvi's mandibles clicked in agitation. "Have you come to gloat, human? To witness the final dissolution of everything we held sacred?" Zoe's expression softened. "Actually, I came to apologize. We never meant for things to go this far. We just wanted to connect. Connect? Xylov V spat the word like a curse. Look around you. Chaos reigns. The lower classes mingle freely with the elite. Important decisions are made over brunch. And is that really so terrible? Zoe pressed gently. Your people are talking, laughing, sharing ideas. When's the last time you saw them this alive? Xylov V opened his mouth to retort, but found the words dying on his tongue. In the distance, he could hear the sound of laughter echoing through the Citadel's halls. It was a sound he realized, with a start, that he had never heard before. I don't know how to live in this new world, he admitted, his voice small. Zoe grinned, clapping him on what she hoped was a shoulder. Well, lucky for you, I'm an excellent teacher. Lesson 1. Sometimes it's okay to just shut up and listen. As the days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, a new order began to emerge from the ashes of the old Concordat. It wasn't perfect. Old habits died hard, and more than one interstellar incident was sparked by an ill-timed joke or misunderstood idiom. But slowly, surely, a more open and connected society began to take shape. The Galactic Senate was replaced by the Big Space Round Table, where representatives from all corners of the former empire gathered to hash out issues over shared meals and terrible puns. Industries that had once operated in rigid silence now buzzed with creativity and collaboration. Even Xylov V found his place in this brave new world. His encyclopedic knowledge of etiquette, once used to enforce rigid social barriers, now made him the go-to expert for navigating the complex web of new social norms. His seminar on mastering the art of how's it going became required viewing across the galaxy. One standard year after the humans' fateful arrival, Captain Zoe Quark stood on the bridge of the icebreaker, preparing to depart. The view screen showed a transformed Orith 7. Its once austere skyline, now a riot of colors and shapes, each building seeming to lean into gossip with its neighbors. Ready to head home, Cap? Priya asked, inputting the coordinates for Earth. Zoe hesitated, her eyes fixed on the planet below. You know, she said slowly, I'm not sure we are done here just yet. Seems to me this quadrant could use a few more lessons in the fine art of chewing the fat. Priya groaned, but a smile tugged at her lips. Why do I get the feeling we're about to become long-term exchange students? As the icebreaker settled back into its orbit around Orith 7, a message crackled over the comms. It was Xylov V, his voice tentative but warm. Captain Quark? I was wondering if you might like to grab a coffee sometime? I find I have many questions about this small talk of yours. Zoe's grin could have outshone a supernova. Xylov, my friend, I thought you'd never ask. And so, as an empire reborn and chatter continued to find its voice, one thing became abundantly clear. In a universe vast beyond imagining, sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply to reach out and say, Hey there, how's it going?